tuning into Tea Time. I'm Narendra. We're at the Unitech Golf and Country Club in Noida from a rather hot Delhi. On the show today, we will be discussing how IT can lead the transformation of the future growth potential of this country with R. Chandrasekhar, who is the president of NASSCOM.
On the show this week, we have R. Chandrasekhar, President, NASSCOM.
The government is focused on development and technology as its agenda. And more importantly, the link between the two.
In news, Graham McDowell rallied from 8 back to capture the French Open. And Angel Cabrera wins Greenbrier Classic.
I mean, good tee off for somebody who's not played golf in a very long time. Just started learning?
Yeah, I'm just making the switch from tennis and badminton, which were my games, to golf.
Golf. So very soon we're going to be seeing you playing, obviously, the game in a larger format and proper 18 holes with your handicap certification in place, of course. Well, let's start off with you at NASSCOM. Now, as we walk over to the fairway, let's discuss the fact that NASSCOM has recently made a promise, and of course a letter to the government as well, where they have promised in helping the government really achieve an IT-led transformation as such for the year 2014 and of course the years going forward as well. I mean, the recent elections were of course a testimonial to the fact that how social media is democratizing the politics, it's helping us achieve transparency. Tell me your plans of how do you plan to enable the government to do this?
Well, you know, first of all, I think the industry itself is very excited by the fact that the government is focused on development and technology as its agenda. And more importantly, the link between the two. And that's really where we see a much larger role for technology and this industry than the contribution that it has already made so far, which itself is quite phenomenal in terms of, you know, the number of jobs of more than 3 million that have been created, $118 billion turnover,
right,
25% of the exports, 8% of the GDP. But I think those impressive figures should not blind us to the fact that much, much more is possible.
Sure.
And that's what we need to unlock.
What are the kind of policies really, Mr. Chandrasekhar, in your opinion, that will help the government ease certain regulations, certain processes that lead to business friction? So the ease in conducting business in this country, whether it is taxation, whether it is IPOs, what are these policies really like that you are proposing?
Well, you know, for one thing, first I want to emphasize that, you know, this whole industry is looked at as one homogeneous industry, which is the IT industry.
Right.
The reality is that it consists of two segments which are as different from each other as chalk and cheese.
Sure.
The bulk of it and the industry as most people see it is the large service companies, which actually have a global presence and a global reach, and which in fact the top 200 of the companies, less than top 200, account for 80% of this turnover.
Sure.
But the other 20%, other than these 200 companies, actually consists of a very large number of small and medium enterprises, and most of them are focused on products and new kinds of innovative services. So innovation and products are their major strength, and they are actually what are the seeds for the future, because they bring in innovation, they bring in new ideas which not only enable them to create new products at great valuation, but also help the larger companies to deliver innovation which their clients and customers overseas want. This has a very different set of characteristics. Unlike the large service companies, here the emphasis is on IP, on development of a product, on the valuation that is created through this company. And in order to enable this ecosystem to grow, we need to understand that dynamic and how other countries are actually riding that wave.
Right.
We have the ability to create a wave at least as big as some of the best countries, including at one end the US, or another country which has done extremely well like Israel.
Right.
So I think the imperatives that segment demands are completely different, whether you look at it in terms of infrastructure, you look at it in terms of financing. They are not based on assets. So the conventional methods of financing and the conventional financial system doesn't find it easy to fund them.
Sure.
A lot of these things also depend on the regulatory environment. And therefore, we need to address those issues. We also need to look at certain support that is required, because the failure rate is also high. We need to ensure that the cost of entry is kept as low as possible through infrastructure support, through some incentives, and also that those who fail, fail early without incurring much of a loss and can then go on to their next innovation or their next idea.
True.
In the very nature of the business, some will succeed, some will fail.
Right.
And we need to keep that in mind. So the regulatory environment has to cater to these unique requirements of this segment.
Got it.
So these two segments need to be addressed very differently. And there's a third dimension that we really want to focus on, and that is that today the bulk of the industry, more than 90% of the revenues, well over 90%, comes from 7 metros.
Right.
So to spread the the employment that is getting created, the kind of growth that is generated, the kind of urbanization that is driven by this industry to a larger part of the country, I think policy also needs to focus on how to diversify the spread of the industry. So these are the three main chunks that we have really focused on.
Thank you for staying with us on Tea Time, and welcome back. We're still in conversation with the president of NASSCOM. Now, a lot of expectation and hope are riding on the Modi government. Of course, the entire country is looking forward to what they have in store for us. Have you, as the president of NASSCOM, had a chance to meet the Prime Minister?
As the president of NASSCOM, I've had the opportunity, and earlier also, I've had the opportunity to meet with Mr. Modi, but not with the Prime Minister Modi as yet. We are awaiting that opportunity, and we hope it will come soon.
And I believe when you meet him, you also have a 5-point agenda that you need to talk to him about, isn't it?
Yes.
And that's a part of your NASSCOM wish list with the Prime Minister.
Exactly. In fact, we wouldn't even call it a wish list. What we are actually saying is that this industry is not coming with a long wish list or asks. It's more about what this industry can accomplish if it is given, the right environment.
Right.
As I was mentioning, the large companies don't need any new incentives. They just need predictability, ease of compliance, and removal of ambiguities, and a lot of
reduction of business friction, of course,
into the application of existing regulations, which have led to mounting litigation. All of this certainly clouds the investment and operating environment in the country. Similarly, for the smaller companies, I've already talked about that.
You're also seeking single window clearances as well in terms of regulation, isn't it?
Yes, I think we need to be sure that such companies can be nurtured, they can be guided through this maze. Many of them are very young, many of them have come in, they are not very familiar with all the regulatory complexities, and therefore some way to guide them through this, both for starting a company and operating, is critical.
Right. Time now for me to play my chip shot and we continue our conversation. Alright, so let's talk about the fact that, do you think there's going to be an enhanced spend as far as the domestic IT space is concerned? Of course, because Modi is very, very keen on and very upbeat on e-governance per se. Also, bills like GST and DTC will require a lot of technological support, won't it?
Yes, absolutely. I think that the recognition that in any agenda to radically transform governance and improve its performance, especially at the interface with the citizen, technology is a key. I think that is what is critical, and that is something which this government already has. The second thing is that in the area of e-governance, when you look at applying technology, it's not just about bringing in the technology. There are a lot of changes which have to come in as a part and parcel of that adoption of technology. It is about changing the various processes which exist, the kind of requirements, whether it's procedural or in some cases even legal, to optimize them from the point of view of the citizen or the business, but make use of technology in the best possible manner. So that is something which actually is the reason why it requires a drive right from the top, whether it is inside a ministry or in a state government or across the government of India. And this drive, when it comes from the top, dramatically alters both the dynamics and the pace of implementation of e-governance. And we certainly do expect that in the current milieu, this is something which will move forward at a much faster pace.
Also, Mr. Chandrasekhar, do you think you will ask the Prime Minister to reconsider this tough stance that he has had as far as UID is concerned?
You know, I think that there are two different aspects of the UID which have to be kept in view. The first is the concept itself, which is the use of biometrics to enable secure, online, convenient authentication of identity. That idea is central and critical to enabling a digital economy within the country. And therefore, I think that central idea needs to be preserved. The other is concerns about the actual identity, where there are some processes under NPR, some processes under Aadhaar, which have differences and which have certain advantages and disadvantages in each case. The short point is that if you need to have an identity scheme in the country, you need to find a way to really bring these together by trying to combine the strengths that are seen in each of them. But the end result has to be kept sharply in focus, which is you have to ensure that a biometric identity which is verifiable online is enabled, and Aadhaar brings that to the table. So how do you retain that essential benefit by making whatever modifications or changes are required? So I think the core concept of biometrics to to establish identity and online verifiability, especially through the mobile, to facilitate easy validation, whether in the banking sector or for governance services or for private sector services or for any number of services for which you require such identification. That I think is something which we are certainly hopeful will be preserved by this government also, with its emphasis on technology and better delivery of government services.
Thanks for staying with us. We're still in our interesting conversation that we're having with the president of NASSCOM. Now, Mr. Chandrasekhar, when you took over at NASSCOM, there were multiple challenges at that point of time. I mean, the product firms felt that they were not being done justice to. The macroeconomic sentiment was really weak in the market, and especially that immigration bill as well loomed large. How have things changed from last year, from when you took on as the president in your new role?
I think there were a few things which were already being done to address this perceived gap between the needs of some segments of the industry and some of the key areas which NASSCOM had focused on and which perhaps received a greater degree of visibility. But if you look at issues like the challenges on the immigration front, and some of the other challenges in other markets, these were quite widely reported and covered. But the 10,000 startups program, for example, is a very, very major initiative which had actually been launched with the help of a lot of the large companies in the country, as well as some of the other participants in the ecosystem like venture capitalists and angel funders and so on.
Right.
So I think the recognition that these needs were different, needed a separate treatment, needed different kinds of initiatives was already there. The second thing is to look at the product segment, which is not identical to the startup segment,
Right.
because many of them and most of them are focused on products, but
Right.
not necessarily all of them.
Sure.
So these unique characteristics of the product industry also needed to be recognized, which is something that we have actually worked on in the last few months, and crystallized what is the agenda for the government and for the industry.
Right. Let's complete our game and we continue chatting in the cart on our way back.
Okay.
Come. Fantastic. Fantastic. So, NASSCOM is today not really projected as a big boys club because it's primarily focusing on IT. What are you doing to change this perceived image of NASSCOM?
Well, you know, as I said, the industry is now grown in diversity.
Right.
In terms of its size, in terms of the kind of companies, in terms of the kind of work they do, in
Right.
terms of the kind of skills that they bring. And the emphasis on innovation and transformation by the clients even of large companies
Right.
has actually also hugely diversified the kind of people who are hired by the industry,
Right.
both in the large companies as well as in the small companies.
Right.
And I think this changing face of the industry, this fact that it is no longer just about IT, it is about innovation, it is about new ideas,
Right.
it is about applying these new ideas and technology to transform the way healthcare is delivered.
Right.
How, for example, patients deal with their doctors, how they,
Right.
how their records are maintained,
Right.
maybe you know, putting them on the cloud as a service, which is as a service which is made available
Right.
at a nominal cost,
Right.
so that people don't have to tuck their records under their arm wherever they go. All of these are the direction in which things are moving. And to think that these are expensive fads is exactly the wrong way to look at it. In fact, these are the ideas which actually will bring affordability and accessibility to these services.
Let's talk about the immigration bill now. Very recently, G's Jeff Immelt said that such kind of a bill is a shame for United States of America. Do you think this is just a shot in the arm or indicative of a broader market sentiment as far as immigration bill is concerned?
I think the view of NASSCOM has consistently been that Indian companies are adding hugely to the competitiveness of US businesses across the world,
Right.
and to the competitiveness of the US economy itself, not to mention the innovativeness within the US economy. We have always said that a lot of the companies who are the clients, and more than 95% of the Fortune 500 US companies are use Indian IT. Therefore, I think very good that this has also been endorsed publicly, because many of the companies have actually confirmed to the Indian IT providers formally that they have actually been able to make enormous savings, enormous improvements in efficiency on account of the work done by these companies. So I think the fact that this is being recognized enables us to prove the point that these kind of restrictions hurt Indian companies, no doubt, but even more importantly from a US perspective, they hurt the US economy and US companies even more. And we see therefore that this is something which is a lose-lose proposition, and it's important that countries should not yield to these kind of sentiments, and in addressing some of the perception issues of immigration in across the spectrum, to make decisions in areas like immigration of high-skilled workers in a manner which hurts both countries and both industries.
Now let's talk about your bureaucratic aspirations. I mean, any plans for becoming a bureaucrat soon?
That is my past.
That is your past, of course, but
this is-
any if in the
and this
future
is
as well,
and
if you
this
would
is
like
my
to.
future.
Oh, really?
And I certainly think that this is a very exciting area.
So no
The
plans to go back
opportunities are
as well?
immense. Oh no, I think that this industry is at the cusp of an even greater evolution. It's at another new kind of inflection point. It aspires to grow from the current $118 billion to $300 billion by 2020. But as I said, more exciting than just the numbers are the extent of innovation and energy and entrepreneurship and youth that really are driving the industry in a new direction. So I think even if you are not in the government, you can actually play a significant role along with and helping alongside the industry in really helping to boost the domestic economy and our competitiveness as a country.
Thank you so much, sir, for joining me on the show. It was really indeed amazing to be talking to you on the green.
Thank you so much.
Well, that is a wrap from me, Chaiti Narula, and the president of NASSCOM as well. I will see you next week again. Until then, enjoy the flight of a good drive. I will see you next weekend.